Het bouwen van nederzettingen in Palestijns gebied is illegaal.
En waarom gaan we dan iemand die daar al maar mee doorgaat hier ontvangen? Kunnen we meteen naar het internationaal strafhof doorsturen. Dat zou beter zijn.
En hoe schreeuwend het onrecht is. Ten hemels schreeuwend onrecht is het. Je kunt het mensen niet kwalijk nemen als ze dan het woord apartheid in de mond nemen.
De situatie is somber. Maar wij blijven strijdvaardig. We gaan door. Het werk is nog lang niet af. Integendeel, er moet nog verdomd veel gebeuren.
Good evening, dear people, gathered here in the New Church in The Hague. It's an honor to welcome you on behalf of the Rights Forum to listen to the first ever Dries van Agt lecture. The church is very full tonight. The tickets sold out in 2 minutes. And people have been stalking me ever since to get on the waiting list. Meanwhile, our government and parliament don't want to receive the person we are going to listen to. Such a great but sad illustration that regimes do not equal their people. There's always a little bit of thinking beforehand on the question whether we should do a whole series of special welcomes to specific people. I've seen a member of parliament, former ministers, members of the diplomatic community, but there's always the risk of forgetting someone. So I will rely on the magic formula that we used to use in diplomacy. Welcome all protocols observed. I'm allowing myself 2 exceptions, though. The first is our generous donors and contributors. Since we don't receive any government funding as the Rights Forum, we entirely rely on them. If it weren't for them, we would not be here and the Rights Forum would not exist. So thank you so much. And we hope we can count on your continued support in the time to come, because heaven knows we will need it. And the second exception to my no specific welcomes rule is for the Van Agt family. A delegation of them is present here in the church tonight. Unlike their father and grandfather, they're not so keen on taking the stage or the spotlight. But it's an honor to have them here in our midst, so we can carry on the legacy of justice and the fighting spirit of their beloved Dries. My name is Berber van der Woude, and I am the new chair of the board of the Rights Forum. The president's hammer was passed on to me at the beginning of this year by the Honorable Jaap Doek, after his presidency of 10 years. I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for his long service and strong dedication to the matter that gathers us here tonight, our commitment to bring an end to the oppression of the Palestinian people and to a future of justice and equal rights in the Holy Land. This is the first ever Dries van Agt lecture, and I see a beautiful crowd of people of all generations gathered here in this church. So I think it's a good idea to tell a little bit more about this remarkable man. And I really regret that I never had the chance to meet him in person. But many people in this church did. And based on what they tell me, and making a reference to millennial pop culture, I can conclude there's something about Dries. He was a Christian Democrat politician serving as Minister of Justice, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and in 3 governments he was the Prime Minister. That was between 1977 and 1982, the year I was born. That's our youngest contributor. I'm quite sure Dries and we would not have exactly aligned in terms of ideology back then. He was not exactly a feminist, then, to put it mildly, and, as per usual, the Netherlands were very, very loyal supporters of Israel during his time in office. After his political career in 1999, Dries van Agt traveled to the Holy Land, and witnessing the ugly reality of the Israeli occupation and the oppression of the Palestinian people led him to fundamentally change his perspective on the situation. 10 years later, he founded the Rights Forum to formalize his combat for a more just and a rights-based Dutch and European policy towards Israel and Palestine. Not only did he dare to radically change his views, he also dared doing it publicly. And he even made it his new life's work to help to change other minds and hearts as well. His courageous self-reflection and sense of responsibility to take care of humanity is an inspiration and can serve as an example for many. Dries van Agt stayed remarkable until his very last breath. Last week, it was exactly a year ago since he passed, together with the love of his life, Eugenie, and they were holding hands. I think he might be with us tonight. It's a true honor to introduce to you our speaker in a bit, but first I would like to take some time to reflect on the very reason we are sitting here in this church. The past 15 months have been a nightmare. The Israeli genocide on the Palestinians in Gaza, the acceleration of Israel's annexation and extremely violent oppression and forced displacement of Palestinians in the West Bank, highly lethal attacks and forced occupation of lands in South Lebanon and Syria, and all this while the Western world either looks away or actively offers support, and thus breaks down the international legal rules and institutions that we so carefully have been crafting since World War II, because we all agreed that never again. When entering this church, you might have seen a beautiful light installation outside, just like the one standing here on the stage. They are the art of the Dutch, Lebanese, Palestinian artist Alaa Minawi. He will take the stage in a minute to tell us more about the artwork. It's called My Light is Your Light, the light of the people displaced, attacked, dehumanized, made refugees anywhere in the world. It is our light as well. It's been 15 months and many decades of violence, illegal occupation, dispossession, displacement, dehumanization. Too many homes were destroyed, too many children robbed of their future, too many valuable, vulnerable lives put up for grabs. Let's observe a minute of silence for all of them.
Thank you. When people are forced to leave their cities, they do not leave their homes, belongings, schools, favorite toys and friends and neighbors behind. They actually leave their skin and organs and memories. They transform into outlines of radiating light. They walk whispering one thing: my light is your light. This was the concept for the installation, My Light is Your Light. It is a pleasure to be invited by the Rights Forum to be here among you. When I was first contacted by the Rights Forum to present My Light is Your Light in this first annual lecture, I was very interested. And then I asked, who would be the guest speaker? And they said, Francesca Albanese. And I was OMG. It is Francesca, the person who, throughout the past 15 months, was saying things as they are. She has been saying the truth, facts, in a time when the easiest thing was to be silent and to turn the other way. We are living in a time where individuals, including in Europe and USA, who are vocal about what is happening in Palestine, are intentionally and systematically being attacked for the purpose to be silenced. Silencing opposing voices is one of the many delusions an occupier has. It is a pleasure to present My Light is Your Light in this event. A family of 6, a father, a mother, an aunt, a grandfather, and 2 siblings were forced to leave home. They are roaming the world until one day they go back to their land. This installation was released after I worked for 4 years between 2010 and 2014 as an interpreter in the United Nations for Syrian, Iraqi, and Sudanese refugees who were at the time seeking asylum. In each of the interviews, the 1,000 interviews that I translated, they told their stories, where they were born, how they grew up, and then how the war forced them to leave home. This installation was dedicated to them and through them to every person who was forced to leave home. I just noticed that I didn't introduce myself. My name is Alaa Minawi. My family name has a meaning. It means the person living near the port. My father is Palestinian, and my mother is Lebanese. In 1948, my grandfather was forced to leave his hometown in Jaffa, Palestine. He moved to Lebanon, lived in a graveyard, then in a tent, then bought a house. Then my father worked, and I was given a beautiful life that I cherish, and I'm aware how privileged it has been. I am the 3rd generation of my family because we Palestinians have 2 different counts for our generational ancestry. One is the actual one. Mine is 400 years back, living in Palestine. We have the family tree and the proof. Another generational ancestry begins from 1948, the day my grandfather was forced out from his home in Palestine. So I am the 3rd generation of Palestinians who were forced out from their home. I am 40 years old. I know, I look younger. So, of course, the 4th and the 5th generations exist now. Having said that, it gives me joy and pride to share with you that even with the 5th generation, the longing to return back to Palestine has not wavered a single bit. In the past few days, we heard from a business loser, who currently is a president, that it is time to empty Gaza and give Palestinians another place to live in. Voila, problem solved. How colonial, how retro. Frankly, with this preposition and all the other ones, I am finding it a bit strange that nobody is asking the Palestinians what they want. As much as it could be annoying, inconvenient, and possibly traumatic to some, I think it would be a wise idea to ask Palestinians what do they want from this conflict. And since no one asked yet, allow me as a Palestinian whose family has been rooted in Palestine for 400 years to say, at least in my name, we Palestinians are going nowhere. Palestinians are here to stay. Palestinians will keep telling their stories. Palestinians will sing songs. Palestinians will rebuild their homes. Palestinians will cure their patients. Palestinians will work on their new traumas. Palestinians will make art. Palestinians are here to stay. In short, Palestinians will not end. I've said the word Palestinian many times because I know that even this mere word bothers the occupier. We are part of this world. We are part of this world, and we are here to stay. And anyone who thinks that they have the power to end us, no matter how much they try, no matter how violent they go, no matter how evil they become, they are simply Dilulu. I think the most powerful thing about Palestinians in the middle of this tragedy is that they stood in their place and said no. Of course, because they said no, they were subjugated to the most horrendous genocide and ethnic cleansing of modern history. At the same time, because they said no, people from all around the world, from different backgrounds, noticed that something was not okay. People are standing by us, taking the streets, not letting go. In gatherings like this, we know as Palestinians that we are not left alone for an artificial, forced fate, which is manufactured in the USA and assembled in Israel. In My Light is Your Light, you will see 6 family members in an eternal walk. If you notice, you will see that 5 of them have their heads looking at the ground, consumed with worry and tired from the walk. There is one, though, whose head is high, outside, looking straight at something, as if it has seen something. And for me, this child represents the only fate of the Palestinian people, which is the most natural, logical, organic, ecological. It is simple and easy. Palestinians one day will go back to their land and live in peace over there. Voila.
Thank you so much, Alaa. This was touching, moving, beautiful, and confronting us with the crazy world we're living in. Thank you. Now, this was a long and beautiful introduction, leading you to the person that, well, you've also came here for. Francesca Albanese is an Italian international lawyer and academic. She studied law and human rights at the Universities of Pisa and the University of London, and she's an affiliate scholar at the Institute for the Study of International Migration at Georgetown University, as well as a senior advisor on migration and forced displacement for a think tank, Arab Renaissance for Democracy and Development. She has widely published on the legal situation in Israel and the State of Palestine, and regularly teaches and lectures on international law and forced displacement at universities in Europe and in the Arab region. She has also worked as a human rights expert for the United Nations, including the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. In 2022, Francesca was appointed Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967 by the Human Rights Council. In her first report in that capacity, she recommended that the UN member states develop a plan to end the Israeli settler colonial occupation and apartheid regime. That language was quite controversial by then. In July 23, she presented a report accusing Israel of turning the West Bank into an open-air prison. After 7 October 2023, her voice grew even stronger. In March 24, Albanese presented her famous report, Anatomy of a Genocide, stating that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Israel was intentionally committing at least 3 genocidal acts against the Palestinians as described in the Genocide Convention. And in her latest report, Genocide as Colonial Erasure, she states that the post-7 October violence against the Palestinians is part of a long-term, intentional, systemic, state-organized strategy of forced displacement and replacement. She urges UN member states to intervene now to prevent new atrocities that will further scar human history. She's currently working on a new report about which we will hopefully hear more in the next hour. And our country so far has not been incredibly welcoming to her, at least the official part of it. And I'm so very sorry and very ashamed of that. And also worried. But we, the Rights Forum, and all the people of conscience that support our cause are incredibly happy and proud to have her here with us tonight to deliver the very first Dries van Agt lecture. Dear friends, may I have a huge applause for the one and only Francesca Albanese.
Thank you. Excellencies, friends and colleagues, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to the Rights Forum for the invitation to address you at this very special occasion in this magnificent setting. The beautiful light installation by Alaa Minawi is haunting, and his words and testimony even more. To the esteemed guests before me who honor me with their presence, I do the same, I skip the protocol. However, there are a few that I would like to acknowledge. And among them, His Excellency Hamar Hijazi, Abu Yasser, Palestinian ambassador to the Netherlands, His Excellency Vusimuzi Filemon Mandosela, Ambassador of South Africa to the Netherlands, and I've been having tears in my eyes since the very beginning of this evening. And I'm so intimidated, but also humbled by your presence, infatigable Professor John Dugard. My esteemed predecessor as a special rapporteur and now representative of the South African legal team in the ICJ genocide proceedings. I would also like to acknowledge my dear friend colleague, and Dutch brother, Lex Stackenberg, and Lisbeth Zegveld, lawyer extraordinaire, who among the many hats she wears is representing the Rights Forum and other Dutch NGOs in the pioneering case against Dutch F-35 exports to Israel. You are all part of the winds of change that are sweeping the world, striving to make rights justiciable. To all other distinguished guests and the representative of the Palestinians and the Jewish communities in the Netherlands. And last but not least, to the relatives of Honorable Dries van Agt, sorry, my pronunciation is not very Dutch, but yeah. Who are present here this evening. It is a true honor to speak in memory of the late Prime Minister and Professor. During his life, Dries van Agt not only became a committed proponent of the rights of the Palestinian people once he saw what Palestine was, but also an ardent believer, as with many of us gathered here today, that upholding international law and respecting universal human rights is the only path to a peaceful world order in the Holy Land, as he used to call it, and beyond. Following his retirement from politics, he dedicated his life to challenging the complacency of the Netherlands and Europe. I like it. Tirelessly calling for concrete measures, including sanctions against Israel for its systematic violations of international law. His fundamental critique of diplomacy being invoked at the expense of justice resonates more than ever. And as Dries van Agt insisted, international law is not optional. It is a system of binding commitments, one that is also enshrined, I understand, in the Dutch Constitution. And the Rights Forum that he established in 2009 is the culmination of this conviction and commitment. As we meet here tonight in the city of international peace and justice, inshallah, the international legal order teeters the international legal orders teeters at the edge of a precipice. And Palestine, Israel, call it whatever you like, lies at the center of this collapse. Israel has been permitted and emboldened to flagrantly violate international law with impunity since its existence. And the Palestinian people have endured unimaginable suffering and injustice in their existential struggle not to be erased or permanently subjugated in the little that remains of their homeland. They are Nakba survivors. No Palestinian in this world has not been touched by this tragedy. The call to uphold international law and to deliver justice for the Palestinian people is not just a serious and compelling legal obligation. It is a moral imperative that because of our history as European, we should really honor. Here and now. And in the year that I've been forced to become a chronicler of genocide, I've also come to realize that denialism and obscurantism, which surrounds Israel-Palestine, and have enveloped the facts that constitute this current and absolutely foreseeable human-made disaster, are unprecedented in their magnitude, pervasiveness, and dangerousness. And yet, neither is coincidental. The present situation in the occupied Palestinian territory, Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, what I'm mandated to report on as a UN Special Rapporteur, is nothing less than catastrophic. But it's also extremely cruel. Following the suspension of hostilities and the ceasefire agreement in Gaza, those who survived, the Palestinians who survived the 50 months of brutal assault, were allowed to look around at the other survivors, to take a breath, to return to their homes and cities that no longer exist, to look for their loved ones, alive or dead, especially those who were buried alive under the rubble or incinerated, and to give dignified burials to them and the many others whose bodies were left to rot in the street amidst rubble, unexploded ordnance, and waste. Cruelty. Because it's against this background, cruelty, is that by the time the ceasefire came into force, over 50,000 Palestinians, at least in Gaza, had been killed by Israeli bombs and snipers, excluding the many still undiscovered under the rubble, and many who have died or will die due to the lack of medical treatment, hygiene, and adequate sustenance. The Lancet, the most authoritative medical journal, way back in June, estimated almost 200,000 likely to have been killed by the circumstances of the war and lack of access to medical treatment. Cruelty is also to finally allow people to return to the devastated north of Gaza, while Trump and the ICC, wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity, Netanyahu, are openly promoting, if not preparing, their ethnic cleansing. While those leaving Gaza for urgent life-saving medical treatment are departing with grossly inadequate reassurances in line with international law for their return. Cruelty is that 2 days after the ceasefire came into effect, Israel intensified its already ongoing assault on the occupied West Bank, conducting indiscriminate attacks in the north, Jenin, Tulkarem, Tubas, Nablus, and neighboring villages. This tragically but predictably evoked the methods and typology we had witnessed in Gaza. By the way, Israeli leaders and military leaders refer to the West Bank as mini Gaza. We will give them the same lesson that we gave to Gaza, and. The destruction of entire residential blocks, the population and leveling of refugee camps, killing any Palestinian in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is what has happened in the West Bank. In the 12 months to October 2024, nearly 700 Palestinians had been killed. And that figure has now raised to 870. In the West Bank alone. At any other moment, that would have raised alarm and international condemnation. And instead, today, it barely registers with us, some of us. Palestinians in the West Bank remain ignored. Cruelty is also that all this is unfolding after 15 months of flagrantly unlawful warfare against a civilian population, broadcast to the world in real time by its helpless victims and truth-tellers. The scale of the crime is known to all of us now. Israel's constant bombing, sniper, and artillery fire spared nothing and no one, showing the most ruthless face of modern warfare. Large-scale indiscriminate bombings, the use of AI-based targeting system, the persistent surveilling of unmanned drones overhead, automatic snipers firing civilians and the children among them as they shopped in markets, collected water, or sought medical help, or even as they slept in tents on a plate outside their tents. It is also the disturbing frequency and callousness of the intentional killing and infliction of serious harm on civilians. 6-year-old Hind Rajab killed with 355 bullets after pleading for help for hours. The fatal mauling by dogs of Mohammed Bahar, who had Down syndrome. The premature babies deliberately left to die a slow death and decompose in the intensive care unit at Al-Nassar Hospital, or the elderly man, Bashir Haji, killed evacuating to southern Gaza after appearing in a propaganda photograph of a safe corridor, and the torture killing of Dr. Al-Bush. And we cannot rest fearing this may yet be the fate of Dr. Abu Sofia. The mass graves, too, have become ubiquitous. The chilling scenes of skulls littering streets as people returned to northern Gaza evoke a profound sense of tragedy and abandonment, and each grave, skull, and bone serves as a silent testament to the horrors endured by millions of Palestinians, countless stories now lost, most probably, to the void of the unknown, leaving a community engulfed in endless grief and unimaginable suffering, a fate imposed on them by design. And what is unfolding before our eyes is, put simply, a monstrosity. In my role as a special rapporteur, I could not possibly have imagined the magnitude of the task that would stand before me. In my function as an impartial and informed witness, it has been my role to draw attention to this reality and its legal significance for the Palestinians, for the Israelis, and for all of us. It is a role that I've taken extremely seriously and selflessly. Nonetheless, my arrival in the Netherlands reminds me that the perception of impartiality remains contentious, especially among those who ignore both what my mandate entails and what impartiality means. Because you see, impartiality entails an obligation to investigate and establish facts objectively, studying them against applicable international law. And once the assessment is done, my job is to insist on measures to restore legality, to undo injustice, and to prevent further abuses. That's it. Impartiality does not require the equidistance between victims and perpetrators. This is the job of politicians. And you have many of them, very good ones apparently. Instead, some treat impartiality just like a pompous name for indifference and an elegant name for ignorance. In the case at hand, this implies exposing the fundamental asymmetry in power, resources, and agency between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Recognizing that beyond the perception of them as equal parties or rivals, the two remain bound by an unequal and iniquitous relationship, one between occupier and occupied, between colonizer and colonized. While we must recognize and seek accountability for the crimes committed by the Palestinians, the settler colonial nature of the decades-long occupation must be kept forefront in our minds if we are to honestly achieve a future built on justice for both Palestinians and Israelis. What has unfolded would not have happened but for the conditions deliberately created by Israel's sustained denial of the right to self-determination of an entire people for 75 years. I find that we, Europeans in general, probably the Americans and the Australians as well, the settler colonial bloc, struggle to understand what self-determination really means. Self-determination is a very simple right, very, very simple. It's the right of a people to exist as a people, free to determine themselves as a people, politically, economically, and culturally, meaning to decide whom to vote for and how to use their economic resources in the little that remains of their land, and to enjoy the culture they have, the religion they have, okay? And there are a few Palestinians in the room, I sense. Those who have not experienced the denial of self-determination do not comprehend how its denial impacts every facet of life, politically, economically, and culturally, psychologically. Without self-determination, the focus on other human rights, the right of water, the right to food of women, children, and persons with disabilities, becomes an exercise in intellectual rhetoric. If we do not understand self-determination and its centrality to what far too many call the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to occur without context, we can neither comprehend the ongoing genocide nor imagine a future based on justice for all those who live between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. It is not a coincidence, I realize now, that my first report focuses on the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people as a critical complement to the focus of my last two reports, where I focus on the question of genocide. First, an X-ray anatomy of genocide, and then I said, let's explain also the context, because someone continues not to get it. It's genocide as a colonial erasure. I insist on describing the ongoing situation in the occupied Palestinian territory as genocide, and in a legal way, because it speaks to a long trajectory of Israel's colonial project, an increasingly real risk of erasure that Palestinians face in their homeland. Genocide is not defined by personal opinions or particular histories, no matter how painful they are, with all due respect. It is not just a single act, rather it is a process. This is why it is critical to understand the context. Legally, genocide is a crime defined in the 1948 Convention as a very specific crime, insidious. Insidious to prove, but because it should be insidious to commit, and involves a series of acts: killing, infliction of physical or mental harm, creation of conditions of life calculated to lead to physical destruction of a group, prevention of birth, forcible transfer of children. When these acts are committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the group as such, where the individuals do not matter. As long as you belong to the group, you become target for destruction. And the group is identified as national, ethnic, or racial or religious group as such. What we are all bearing witness is clearly genocide, but also what not only is clearly genocide, but it's also what settler colonial genocide looks like. And this is why the case that South Africa has initiated before the International Court of Justice is historical, it's monumental, because this is the first settler colonial genocide to be litigated before an international tribunal. And this is why it resonates so strongly with indigenous communities across the world, from New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and even Norway. Sami people, and of course in the United States. And the destruction in a genocide is physical and biological, and it's the devastation of the group in order to take control of the land. And this is another critical point. Land is central to understanding the intent that drives Israel's genocide. We must step outside our Western understandings of land and place and property. That is not to say Palestinians do not also understand private property. They're not perfect either. But it was a joke. But for the Palestinians, as with all indigenous people, their land is not just a place where they live. It is who they are, and is evident in the dignity and resilience Palestinians in Gaza have shown us all. This is why the displacement, the dispossession, the cultural destruction and devastation of sovereignty, including food sovereignty, that we have seen in recent months are to be seen as intended to sever the cultural belonging and connection to the land. These deliberate acts are genocidal. They have led us to this very precarious moment. The colonial amnesia of so many Western states has led us to forget the hundreds of millions of people who have suffered genocide from Latin America to Namibia. The Indonesian archipelago, I was told not to say that because of Moluccu, but you're Dutch, so you're brutally honest, like me. And Australia, from Australia to North America, justified through the logic of Western settler colonialism and in the name of civilization and security. Indeed, this denial and obscurantism is not by accident. The invisibilization of the victims of past colonial repression is integral and functional to sustaining the present manifestations of colonialism and imperialism. If we don't see it, we don't have to address it. And this is why not all, because I'm going to meet with parliamentarians tomorrow, just not with the Foreign Affairs Committee. So they don't have to see it, so they don't have to address it. This is why, when confronted with the deliberate human-made catastrophe that has been created in Gaza, the high-level discussions regarding the possibility of Israel having committed acts of genocide remains astonishingly a contested one among states, particularly in the West. At most, we see broad recognition that Israel has committed war crimes against humanity, as if it was a light thing, Oh no, but it's just war crimes. In its all-out assault on Gaza. But such framings reflect no more than what Palestinians have already endured for decades, before the current escalation. When we speak of genocide, we are identifying the thread of intent that keeps together various components intended to destroy the people as such. And this singular threat runs through the collective conduct. This is why in the last report that I wrote, that I truly hope that the legal team of South Africa will really try to look at, because it's again, I understand that the ICJ has been is a conservative body, that's okay, but we cannot miss the genocidal intent in this case. Not only because the intent is direct, has been said, has been acted upon, and it's there, but we need to understand where it comes from. And we need to look at the totality of conduct and crimes against the totality of the people as such, in the totality of the land. And why I insist is not only as an intellectual exercise, but because I do see the genocidal violence that has been committed against the Palestinians in Gaza leaking out into the West Bank. And this is already something that I was seeing in October last year. So if we fail to understand that these accumulated acts constitute genocide, we risk leaving the totality of Israeli destructive conduct camouflaged behind the distortion of international humanitarian law, human shields, evacuation orders, safe zones, collateral damage, and we have normalized the monstrosity that Israel has done. I was saying that in March last year, saying, look, this is going to become the new script to wage wars. And there's in fact 6 months later, Lebanon. It is then a distortion compounded by overly technical and reductive reasoning and frankly ill-informed speculation about what genocide truly entails. The still developing international jurisprudence on genocide shall not be used as an excuse not to apply the label of genocide to what is happening. It is not only that genocide has been overlooked, it has been fully justified and enabled, and enabling Israel to continue it, and third states to evade their responsibility under the Genocide Convention, which obliges states to prevent, then to stop, and then to punish genocide. Appallingly, the reaction of many in the international community has exposed the enduring legacy of colonialism and imperialism in our post-World War II world, and is jeopardizing the international law-based multilateral order as we speak. Every morning in this part of the world, we look at our phone and we see yet another piece of the multilateral order falling down. But here is where I urge us not to despair. In a way that is akin to a clockwork orange, we cannot allow Clockwork Orange, you have watched the movie, right? Yeah. We cannot allow the live-streamed genocide and its associated apathy to desensitize us to the violence and normalize the oppression, dissociate us from its moral failure and legitimize the legitimate. We have to speak accurately and coherently in calling this what it is. A genocide, the end result of a protracted unlawful occupation, apartheid, and aiming to get the land and the resources without the people. We need to act accordingly, and we must resist framing the situation as a chronic humanitarian crisis to be managed rather than a political question to be redressed in accordance with international law. And right now, as we speak, I see the sky from afar, the sky of Gaza, already filled by humanitarian vultures, ready to start taking care of the Palestinians, you know, and this is really revolting. We cannot allow all this to clockwork us into a conditioned acceptance of the unthinkable. In a moment where international law has rarely faced such a challenge, it has paradoxically also proved a pivotal tool in our struggle. International law has moved. No, I think international justice has moved. We may all complain about the lack of justice, the lack of rules. No, they are there. And the ICJ and the ICC have lived up to their responsibilities. For the ICC, I would say, finally. It is states who must move now in accordance with their obligation under the Genocide Convention. So while the ICJ and the ICC will continue their investigation, and as we wait for the dust to settle as investigations gradually uncover the extent of the violations committed in Gaza and the West Bank, we must turn also to look to the responsibility of third states, including the Netherlands. And here's the pressing question. What do UN and EU member states actually do to fulfill their legal obligations and bring Israel's unlawful occupation, cum apartheid and cum genocide, to an end? No longer should the concern of state be constrained to particularly Israeli acts as being in violation of these or that international norms, such as the building of settlements or the widespread arrest and detentions of Palestinians, including children. It has now been established by the International Court of Justice in its monumental advisory opinion of July 2024 that Israel's presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful and must be dismantled totally and unconditionally. Not just the troops, not just the settlements, everything, including the control of natural resources on the Palestinians, including the borders, including the airspace, everything, tangible, intangible, material, immaterial, everything. And the General Assembly has also given a deadline for Israel to comply with it, 12 months. And so the countdown has started, and the deadline is to pack and go is September 13th. That means that state must cease. This is already new. This is something that was already clear, and still now it's really, even the ICJ has said it. States must cease to engage with the unlawful presence that Israel maintains in the occupied Palestinian territory. As states must ensure that impunity that has obscured, muted, and sacrificed the plight of the Palestinians on the altar of political convenience for decades and crescendoed into this monstrosity, we need to ensure that now this all comes to an end. We must urge governments to do more. The situation of illegality that results from Israel's presence in the West Bank, Jerusalem, and Gaza means that diplomatic, political, and economic interactions with Israel should be carefully scrutinized to ensure they do not support or provide aid or assistance to Israel's unlawful presence. For example, arms export license must be cancelled. I mean, I appreciate the government official hair splittings. They have to check what does harm what. No, it's very easy. You just cut it. Stop. End. Halas. Arms export license must be cancelled. Transparency on third state indirect transfers is an imperative. Businesses must be regulated and sanctioned if they engage and profit from this illegality. The magnitude of the crimes and the sustained impunity that has enabled Israel's violations of international law to remain unchecked for decades will come to an end. Inshallah. Those who commit crimes, including dual nationals serving in the Israeli army or living as illegal settlers in the occupied territory, must be held accountable for their possible crimes. So too must companies that are profiting for the unlawful occupation and this genocide, including banks, pension funds, research centers, and charities. Oof, I'm working on it right now. You can't imagine the joy. It is in the spirit of this principle that Van Agt himself acted, and I'm really, again, all the more honored to be speaking this, I understand, quite blunt words here tonight. I commend that this city, in the tradition honored by Van Agt, hosted a few weeks ago the Hague Group that was launched by 9 member states to take effective measures against Israel's unlawful endeavor, such as no arms, no harbor for ships bound to Israel, and to hold Israel accountable under international law. It is what the international legal order desperately needs to see at this moment: integrity and actions. Deeds, no more words. In a better world, the Netherlands would have been among the states spearheading this noble group. And after all, we are here meeting in the capital of international peace and justice, which bestows upon us, the Netherlands, the special responsibility toward universal human rights and international law. Yet, to the contrary, it was only yesterday afternoon that a right-wing majority in the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Dutch Parliament cancelled, I already said that, the committee's conversation with me. It's okay. Such a sad state of affairs must not deter us from seeking change. As politicians, leaders, and stewards of international law, there are many sitting now in this room who have influence on the duty to act decisively. The mechanisms of legal accountability exist. They depend on our humanity and political will to defend and use them. And to the civil society, committed academics, students, young people, ordinary people from all walks of life who have not sat idle in the face of this grotesque injustice. You are the antibody of a healthy rule of law system, and for that, I thank you. In this time of utter despair that many of us experience, and which do so from the comfort of our homes while we enjoy our families, friends, workplaces, and communities, we have neither the time nor the choice to tire or to be hopeless. As African-American educator Mariam Kaba says, hope doesn't preclude feeling sadness or frustration or anger or any other emotion that makes total sense. Hope, though, is not an emotion. Hope is not optimism. Hope is a discipline, and it's a discipline that we must practice together, standing in solidarity. Drawing from my Latin ancestors, the word solidarity comes from the Latin solidum, which means entire sum, unity, togetherness. Solidarity as a value and a social value cannot be passive. Togetherness cannot be passive. It is an active noun that must mirror collective feeling and collective action. And together we need to think, together we must act toward a common goal, which today for Palestine means end the genocide, end the occupation, and end the apartheid. And may our rallying call be, let it be justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I invite you to sit down? Oh, I don't know if... Wait. You can...
The baby!
Yeah, this is yours. The other one is the lipstick.
No, the computer.
Yeah. You have the computer at home?
I get separation anxiety when the baby is taken away from me.
Thank you, Edwin.
Excuse me. No one is perfect.
Humans and their devices, right? Thank you so much, Francesca. This was a whirlwind of information and also of emotion, to be honest. And the word that you were repeating and repeating was cruelty, right? And yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm just completely silent by the fact that it is so cruel. And is there like anything so cruel in the way the world is reacting to a situation of your knowledge as a scholar, as an academic?
This is the moment where I transform into the guru, Osho.
Well,
No, because there is something that should be said and shared besides international law, which again, it's very clear. It's very clear. International law is very clear. We have had the era of standard setting. And they've also, it's not true that it's just, it's true that it's a master's house, but others have come in and have made it better. I mean, and human rights in particular are the result of so many struggles. I often remind people, slave trades didn't end because all of a sudden the traders became principled, right? And so women, we have it in our DNA, how much we have struggled, how much injustice we have survived being locked in psychiatric hospitals or in jail for asking just to be recognized as women. And you know, this is human rights are the culmination of struggles, and so I get really annoyed when they are disparaged. So the rights are there. Other people have already done the job of having them cast in stone somewhat, and also there are enforcement mechanisms. Now the point is that we need to work to make those rights enforceable, and this is where I came to a moment of real confusion, because again, Palestine for me, like for many, has been the red pill matrix. Anyone?
yes.
Yeah. And has been the red pill, and I've realized the kind of world we live in. We are we tend to be very, very focused on the present that we forget the past. And we don't think, we are a speck of dust in the trajectory of history. And apart from the fact that it's brutal, but it is in Europe until a few decades ago, 50 years ago, there were European states were putting people of color in zoos. And just saying, there is one thing that we shouldn't forget. That there is something, when in the discourse, settler colonialism, something that I've understood by also working and meeting with people across the globe, really mobilizing for justice around Palestine, is that we are all fighting against a system. And I'm not saying there might be other systems. I'm not blaming the West, because the West is also us. And I'm a very proud European. I want Europe to be better. I want my country to be better. No, there's some work to do in Italy. But this is the thing. I think we need to understand that this is a moment for emancipation. Imagine it as patriarchy instead of in a family at a global level. This is a moment to emancipate ourselves from a diktat of someone has always violated international law. I've kept on repeating, Israel a serious violator of international law, which is true. Professor John Dugard used to say the same 20 years ago, so I'm not even such a genius.
Well.
Copycat. The point is that it's not the only one. Look at the United States, what they have done since the beginning of this world order. So it's Israel and the United States. Voila, now we know it. So isn't it possible the other 191 member members of the United Nations cannot get together, solid word. You remember? Living active now. Can we get together and do things differently? I think we can. I think we must. And the challenge is, we will be able to do that? I don't know.
Do you believe so?
It's not about believing. I think that it's really time. I'm not thinking what I believe. I act.
You act.
In times of emergency, it's better to act.
How can we organize, Francesca? How can we, because, well, being part of the movement, of the solidarity movement, of the anti-genocide movement, the walls that we are bumping into, only trying to make it visible, to make it, even something that can be discussed without being attacked for being, I don't know what. I mean, being like polarizing, anti-Semitic, hateful, dangerous. It's like it's impossible to get behind those walls and to get into the conversation. How?
No, it's not impossible.
No, well, I hope so.
We need to change. We need to change the conversation. We need to gain the upper hand of the conversation. And again, look, I mean, I cannot say that I'm not bothered by the fact that even a university called Freie Universität, whatever it is, I don't speak German, sorry, excuse me, drop that term frei.
Right?
All right? But again, I'm not bothered because there are a bunch of cowards who are scared. You're Dutch. So you shouldn't be impressed with my...
No, that's true. Well, you don't know, what you don't know about the Dutch is that we want to be very honest, or at least blunt to others. But when someone else does that, we are very shocked.
You're jealous. You're jealous, I get it. No,
yes, well, actually I am.
But this is the thing. I think that this is the thing that bothers me. Because I really believe that the system we lived in was different. I'm still processing the shock of how much of the past is recurring into the present. How racist we were, how racist we still are. Mm-hmm. And the sense of arrogance and all the paraphernalia that go with it. But you know what? You take the university and we won't tell you. Because we don't want now the rest of the minions to assault the other venue. But we are going to meet. So people in Berlin, don't despair. Eyal Weissman and I, we are coming and we are going to talk through the evidence and the legal assessment on genocide. So the point, yes, I'm bothered because seriously, in the face of so much death and so much despair, this is the thing that bothers me. Politics aside, are we the only one that can't sleep, that are sickened to have seen for months the bodies of children hanging from walls? Or mothers crying at their children being incinerated in buildings and refugee camps? It makes no sense whatsoever. Why can't we empathize with the Palestinians? It's the same thing, because like 100 years ago, we couldn't empathize with the Jewish people. Today, we cannot empathize with the Palestinians or with anyone else that is not white and Christian. Okay? Male. White, straight, male, Christian. This is why when I was chatting with the family of Dries van Agt and other friends before, I said, look, Dries van Agt presented himself as jurist, European and Christian. I cannot say that I shared all with him, at least two things, So we need to face the reality, and we need to. We can change this. You think that we are not changing? Do you think that it has not made a difference? The noise, the pressure, the fact that finally there are people taking governments to court. And please continue. More, no less. I mean, when I see young students coming, law students coming and say, oh my God, you are giving me so much inspiration. Great, because you are very needed. I mean, I thought that at a certain point we had an influx of lawyers. I don't think it anymore. We need more lawyers, but also lawyers committed not to serve the market, which is frankly depleted our planet, to preserve what we have of our humanity.
Yeah. Can I ask you a technical question about your discipline? Because I tend to get, and many of us, I think, here in Holland, we are stuck on the matter of genocide still. We cannot grasp our minds around, we cannot get our minds around the fact that Israel, as descendants from, the Holocaust, the Jews, would be able to commit a genocide.
Israel doesn't represent the Jewish people.
No, well, that's the first thing you do, that you say. And that's...
Let me say just what Israel is, because there are many things that Israel is state, members of the United Nations, fine, but it's also, it's the compensation that guilty Europeans gave to the Jewish people, sort of to turn the page, right. The genocide, mercantilistic, always mercantilistic. I wish we were different today. But there are so many Jewish people who are resisting all this and who are saying, not in my name, not in my name. So while there are many Jewish people who keep on standing by the side of Israel, there are many who do not. So we should not give oxygen to this. And it has nothing to do with religions, just for the records. I mean, Israel, as I often say, could be run by Muslim, Christians, atheists, Buddhists, whomever. The assessment of people like human rights lawyers, Shirley, John Dugard, and I wouldn't change.
Thank you. But the matter comes the whole time once you pass this hurdle, which we never seem to pass in the discussion, because, well, that's the whole reason that you were not welcome in Parliament, was this issue. But it's always about this intent. When I get into a debate, people say, yeah, no, but the genocidal intent was not proven yet. It has to be proven from documents, from whatever. How do you react to this? Well, we've seen footage of people actually.
No, it's proven. It's proven. I mean, there is the South Africa legal team has been the first one to put together a database and continue to increment it. It has also presented to the Security Council. There are others, including there is an Israeli scholar called Lee Mordechai who has produced another database. Israeli soldiers themselves have been great, like any genocidal society, at documenting anything they had. They've used the modern technology, that's fine. The problem is not that. The problem is always this justification. I mean, look, before, we have been saying the occupation is unlawful, is irredeemably unlawful. I mean, Michael Link, my predecessor, in 2017, wrote an incredibly strong report saying that the occupation is unlawful, not because of occasional violations or random violations of international humanitarian law, the law of war, the law of occupation here and there. It's irredeemably unlawful because it violates the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people. And this is why I wrote the first report, because I said, maybe people don't understand what there's a right of self-determination is. But no, and he said, I mean, it leads to annexation, and it has been used to keep the Palestinians oppressed. It has been a vehicle to oppress the Palestinians in the name of security. We knew it, and again, and even when we have the ICJ advisory opinion, so we knew that settlements were war crimes, grave breaches of international humanitarian law, and for which there is also individual liability. I mean, the International Criminal Court, what did it need and why it has not issued arrest warrants against those who continue to sign off the annexation of large swathes of the West Bank? Again, this is, it's a metastasis of crimes in that piece of land. I mean, in a few years we will be able really to write an encyclopedia with what has happened to the Palestinians over 100 years. But this is not the point. The point is that member states are not interested, certain member states, not all of them, and we should stop to always look at what these, I mean, a dozen or a few dozen immoral member states that we have. That, I mean, I agree that they're very influential, but this must change from within and from outside. And they will continue to make excuses, because this is a system protecting itself, right? The cherry picking of international law is the end of the universality of international law. Because now it's very clear we need to stand against it. And again, I understand your sense of despair. But this is another problem that we have in our societies, that there is never, the grief has been so strong, really, we have been paralyzed by the pain that, the violence that flooded our life all of a sudden through our phones, morning, night. I mean, how many of us have not been able to sleep for a long time? I mean, it's awful. And this has traumatized us. I mean, many of us have been on denial, many of us enraged, depressed. These are all stages of grief. We are grieving, and it's beautiful to grieve together. It's okay, we are human. But then, once we treat ourselves together, we heal together, we need to move. You know? So we can have our emotions, we can keep on suffering, but we need to organize ourselves and build alliances. Look at the Hind Rajab Foundation. I think that it's brilliant, that foundation, for so many reasons, but because it doesn't have a political manifesto. That when then everyone starts to disagree with this word and this other, no. Bring to justice those who have committed crimes. Full stop. In the occupied Palestinian territory, of course. And this is the thing. Now we need to be really to work on a minimum common denominator. This is why I was saying justice is to be, the resolving the question of Palestine in line with international law is very easy. I know, easy to say, but even that. It's end of the genocide, and now end of the apartheid end of the occupation in 6 months, and then end apartheid. But until, I mean, everything that we do needs to be upheld by this vision. This is the goal. And then the strategy depends. If you're a journalist, if you're legal scholars, if you are an ordinary person, look at what you buy. Make your fridge apartheid free, for example. This is already something very nice if you can do that. I mean, housewives, please look at what's the name of the movement?
The thread
that proposes the application of international law?
BDS.
What? Yeah, that one, BDS. Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, it's really a
Did you just call up on housewives? Did I hear that right?
I'm the daughter
You're
of
from
one.
Italy.
Yeah, no, and I'm the daughter of one. Was raised this fighter,
yes.
So there is no judgment.
Oh, and there
Excuse me.
No judgments.
Too much progress is no progress.
That's true.
Voila.
That's true. So,
Northern Europe, south of Europe.
Well, we have many hidden housewives.
What shouldn't have said? Sorry, I'm really educate me. How do you call the women who work at home instead of, you know?
Deeltijdprinses. No.
It's a job.
I know.
It's not it's the wifey thing. Sorry.
It's the wifey thing, yeah.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Francesca, a question about yourself and how...
This anti-feminist tomorrow on media. Oh. Francesca Albanese, all of a sudden you will forget your political party. You didn't want women in this country to have voting rights. The fault will be mine. This is part of the Palestinian exceptions.
Francesca, about how you, as a person, because you've been receiving quite a lot of,
love. I've received
love. You've been receiving love, but you've also been receiving a lot of hate. Let's be honest, right? It was really nasty what is being said about you, the way you've been attacked, the way you are being framed. It's ugly, but it's also dangerous, I think.
Yeah, it's dangerous for you that you let politicians smear a UN Special Rapporteur, it's very bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, it speaks to,
It does.
This political class more than me. So excuse me, I'm fine. I don't care. I don't care. And this is truly, otherwise I couldn't be the person I am. I don't let myself be defined by other people's opinion, good or bad. I mean, do you think that, and this is very obvious to you what you just said, but sometimes, recently in Norway someone told me, people were expecting something more. Well, you should have listened to the question. I mean, it was really, I don't read tarots. I'm not a guru. I mean, I'm not that inspirational. I'm just a person who's trying to survive and to make sense of it out of what I know, which is how international law can drag us by the air out of this mess. Nothing else. So the criticism comes from many corners, and it's totally fine. I'm fine with it. I'm fine. And can we move to something else? Can we talk?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we might want to take some questions from the room, right? From the audience. I see a couple of hands raised already. Edwin and Michiel will walk around with some microphones. Okay, so I would like to really ask you to ask questions and not make statements. This is what usually happens in this kind of audiences, right? That people find their stage and just do another lecture. But I would like to ask you to really ask a question. Ja, kijk, ik kan niet zo goed zien. Ja, dus kun jij? Oh, Sarah, ja.
Is there any politician here, any MP?
Yeah, I saw one, at least. Oh, I saw there one.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Ik zag Sarah daar met de hand omhoog, van Artje van Gaza.
Can I ask another question meanwhile? Is there anyone who doesn't agree with me?
Fat chance. They're all afraid of you.
Bad.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for that speech. I'm Sarah Galli. I'm a representative of Doctors for Gaza, a health workers collective here in the Netherlands. I have two questions. First off, 2 weeks ago, we have started an International Health Workers Alliance for Justice, bringing together over 100 medical organizations from over 30 countries. And we want to stand up for our medical colleagues in Palestine and the war crimes committed against them, against healthcare and against patients. One question that I would have is very concretely, what would be the best strategic route for us to try to get justice for them? Would it be through European Court of Human Rights or another organization? How can we get the very well documented war crimes against health and health workers? How can we get those accountable, brought to justice in the name of other healthcares? We would like to have an initiative on that. And the other question that we have is how can we, as people and as organization, help and support the UN to fulfill its function? And especially with the current situation where the US has such a strong veto in every binding sanction, how do we prevent the UN of becoming the next League of Nations?
Well, that's a very small question. Thank you, Sarah. Do you want to take first a couple of questions?
Or from other the doctors are just from the Netherlands, Sarah, or?
We from Doctors for Gaza are from the Netherlands, but we're now putting together an alliance of 30 different countries, and we have now 100 organizations together. We're still starting. It's very new. We literally met for the first time 2 weeks ago in Geneva at the United Nations, where we pretty much said, we want you to do your job, and the right to protect and to healthcare, and protect the humanitarian corridor, protect the hospitals, protect the healthcare workers, and liberate the hostages, the medical hostages.
Do you want to take some questions, or do you want to reply?
No, we can.
No? Okay, we can take another one. Yes?
We can take Dries if you want.
What would you want Caspar Veldkamp and Dick Schoof to do? Just a very straightforward question.
It's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and our Prime Minister. Caspar Veldkamp.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Something comes to mind. We stay very demure, right? Okay, there's another one in the back.
Yeah, I'm a doctor from the Netherlands, and I would actually like to ask you, why are there no boots on the ground, no peacekeepers? Because if I would work there as a doctor, I would like to have some safety. Is there any...
There are boots on the ground.
Yeah,
Right.
any kind of regulation for that? Why is it not set in?
Yes.
Shall we start answering
Yeah.
this batch and then do another round?
Yeah. In the sense, I think that first of all, there are different ways to answer Sarah's question, and one is that I think that here we are called upon acting not just as professionals, as human beings, as voters, as part of a polis, an organized society. So I think that what is really one of the horrible things that I've seen is the lack of education about what's happening in Palestine, the lack of information or the misinformation. So it's very important to continue to inform. So each of you, I'm talking to you, I'm answering you, Sarah, just because you gave me the opportunity to comment on this. But there have been many people from the medical profession sort of raising their voice. But what are the others? And why don't they speak out first? The second thing is that pharmaceutical companies, please check the medications that you prescribe to your patients. The reason why I'm saying that is because this is where part of what I've unfortunately had the bad idea to put my hands on. When it comes to, look, the occupation wouldn't last, would end before the deadline that the General Assembly has given if the vultures stopped profiting out of it. And really, the pension funds and the banks, and it's incredible, but it's a system within a system, and so as the medical doctors, you have to be aware of it. And I know that there has been always this discussion: does it come from the settlements or does it come from other parts? Well, I think at this point we can be lesser splitters, because at the time of apartheid South Africa, people didn't differentiate how the white South Africans, behaved with the Bantustan, outside the Bantustan. It's apartheid, halas, let's deal with it as an apartheid state. It should be the same with Israel, right? So this is the time to really scrutinize the ties. It's not about boycotting the Israeli individuals, it's about cutting ties with companies. And because the state is taking time, we need to do that as individuals and professionals. And when it comes to how to use courts, well, in these countries there are lawyers extraordinaires, and there are lawyers, attorneys who have already started litigation before the Dutch courts. So I would say it's very important to consult with with legal experts and tell you how to activate the courts. This is something I don't know, but I can tell you that you couldn't go to the European Court for Human Rights without going through the national system. So I strongly recommend, this is an alliance that we need to build. Continue to create these networks among various professions and professionals and the lawyers. I don't want to put the category at the center of everything, but this is where you need us. So especially those who work at the national level, on strategic litigation. boots on the ground, I think there are already too many in Palestine, but I hear your point. I hear your point, and you mean why there are no peacekeepers? Because there is someone vetoing anything that has to do with interfering with the unlawful occupation. And you will not, I mean, I've been advocating for at least a protective presence. Now I'm telling everyone, go to Palestine and try to be a peaceful observer. And you know, UNRWA during during the first Intifada, used to send out its international staff to where the Palestinians were, where the clashes used to be. And it's not that they were warriors, never been, UN, God forbids, but at least, you know, that where the presence itself discourages violence. Now it's much more risky, but it is to happen. I've been asking also to Arab states, can you work? Can you stand together and put pressure and create your own presence in the occupied Palestinian territory as a transition, while the Israelis step out of it? No much response, honestly. And how do I want from, nothing in particular, but maybe one thing next time because next time I come, I will still ask to the Minister of Foreign Affairs for a meeting as per the protocol. Perhaps when the visit is declined, can I be informed before he goes on talk to the media? Out of courtesy and protocol.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shall we take some other questions? Chat.
First, thanks a lot for this inspiring work. And just a question on the enforcement tools, because you mentioned that the international legal track is something to be hopeful about. You see the political bias on this topic with many Western governments. Do you see any enforcement tools for this international legal track to force the political spectrum to take action? And what are these enforcement tools concretely? Because, I mean, I'm from Lebanon. I've been raised in an occupation of Israel. And there where we had, since I'm a kid, I hear about Resolution 425, for example. I still have it in my head. But it was never implemented until the military struggle has liberated the country. And this is something where you would see more of people in these countries, if they see that there's no hope for the legal tracks, let alone the political track, they will refer to these kind of tracks. So do you see some enforcement and hope there?
Yeah. Okay.
Shall we take other two questions? I mean,
another one. Yeah. I saw Esther.
Most people want to stay in Gaza. We hear them loud and clear, we will not leave. But there are also some people who really want to leave for medical treatment, study, or family reunification. Dozens of people have the right to come to the Netherlands, but the Israeli occupation does not allow them to leave. Since May 2024, the borders have been closed. And currently, only a handful of medical cases are allowed to leave. Why does the Israeli regime and also the US make it seem as if they want Gaza to be emptied, and at the same time they don't allow people to go out when they want to leave? Like, what do you think is behind that?
Thank you. Yeah, I see also here, yeah, it's difficult to choose people. There are many more questions. We have...
Ms. Albanese, we are in a certain way have special responsibilities because we house the ICE and the ICC. Now my question to you is, how do you think that we can enable, and we must by treaty, we are bound by treaty, but do we, in your view, enable the work of the ICC and the ICE as much as we could and as we should? And if not, what do you advise us, the public or other people, to enforce our legal obligations bound by the treaties because we house those two institutions?
Thank you, Jaap. Edwin said that there was one more.
Oops.
Are you still coping, or should we just start answering? Yeah? Last one, or one more, and then we round, Oh, you gave away the microphone. This is very dangerous.
Yes, I'm going to give it back. I promise. I'm Aisha Hamid, and I hope... Hi, Berber.
Hi.
I hope I can end with this question, because we've been talking a lot about what should happen and what we should be aiming for. But as we all know, the Palestinians themselves, and I speak as a Palestinian, have been excluded from these conversations, these negotiations, and peace talks. We've never had a seat at the table. And I think I would like to hear more about how we, as an international community can push to give that agency back to those that want to liberate our own country.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the last question.
Well, you want to start with that one?
No.
No?
Look, the enforcement tools are there. I don't think, meaning at the national level, at the international level, look, I think that after 9 months of genocidal assault in Gaza, eventually the Security Council passed a resolution ordering a ceasefire. What more do we want from the organ which is responsible to determine how to maintain peace and security? Nothing changed. Israel continued to massacre Palestinians, not just in buildings, because there were not many buildings where they could stay, but in tents. The level of, the number of people who have been incinerated in camps, it's appalling. And this is the point. Again, to the risk of sounding repetitive, but we really need to understand that the international law is as strong as the will of state to enforce it. And I do not believe that the United Nations can do anything without the will of states, because it's not a divine entity or even a third entity. It's a platform. It's a platform where member states have come, discussed, organized, strategized, grown together, and it has not served everyone equally. This is why I'm so upset that it's our part of the world which is the one that has benefited from the system the most, which is being so condescending. And while the system is being turned into pieces, because clearly it doesn't serve the interest of the United States anymore. Let's name the elephant in the room. It's very clear what's happening. Multilateralism, who cares? But this is not something that started with Palestine. This is something really brutally. It started with probably even before, but it became clear with the Iraq War. The moment you start using force, look, there is something that is very, very clear in the UN Charter. You can only use force under two circumstances: when you are reacting to a threat, to an attack emanating from another state, or when the force is authorized by the Security Council. The United States is the state that has violated this before Israel. And you know, it's this relaxation of the enforcement mechanisms that lead to the collapse of the system itself. So not only it's unequal, not only does it applied unequally to the various member states of the international community, now it's even really turned into pieces under our eyes. I don't know how member states in what we call the global south, for lack of a better word, it's not the right term, I'm trying to figure out how to call the part of the world which makes sense today. But again, look at the example of South Africa. South Africa I understood what was going on when I met with the ambassador of South Africa in Geneva. And again, I was so excited, and I said, "You are so strong." I said, "No, we are not strong. We have gone alone. I mean, we have gone into this alone. We couldn't leave the Palestinians alone in this one, out of principle. And this is bad, but at the same time, they've gone alone and they have awakened the conscience of all of us. And this is why member states might continue to fail, to betray, to disavow their real intentions and not to use their enforcement mechanisms. And this is where we need to resist as the antibody of a healthy rule of law system. And we cannot leave it, frankly, to the students on their own. Sorry, how many of you have joined the student protest where, I mean, I've seen pictures from this country which looked like the occupied Palestine. Good, but still, few, very few. Where were the others? Were you taking holiday? and there were these pictures with, looked like the occupied Palestinian territory. You had the caterpillar, like, and to dismantle the encampments, the caterpillar thing, and then you had the police and the army. Mm-hmm. Seriously? And where were the others? So yes, you clap your hands. Sorry, you clap your hands when I say togetherness, but you understand what has gone wrong until now? You need to get out of your homes. Stop shopping. It's about people's life. I mean, again, something needs to change. We cannot be committed to justice with a white-collar mentality. And this is not something that we can delegate to Siri, whatever you have it in your home. We need to be really serious and committed. It's about us. It's about our system. It's not charity toward the Palestinians. It's a legal obligations we have toward the Palestinians and toward the Israelis who are standing side by side with the Palestinians. They're few, I agree, but they're there and they shouldn't be invisibilized. The Israelis who are standing against the occupation, against apartheid, and against this genocide. So we need to learn from the resilience of the Palestinians, the fact that some Israelis have realized the kind of system they are part of, and we need to be engaged because as you have seen over the past 15 months, freedom of expression and freedom of assembly are there on our constitutions and wonderful legal documents, and then it takes, poof, that much. It takes a long time to have them in the constitutions, and it takes that long to have them taken away. So wake up, friends. People who want to live. Look, you asked me a question. Why do the United States and Israel look like they want to empty Gaza? Because I really think that they want to empty Gaza. And not just Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So they are empty Gaza of the Palestinians, of course. And I think they want to do that. Now, I'm not sure I have all the information I need to comment on why they are not letting people with cases of medical evacuation go. I've read about something extremely disconcerting, like Palestinian children, again, leaving Gaza without their parents, others being asked to sign a waiver that they will not return to Gaza. Again, I will be investigating this, but the point is that Israel should not have a say on what happens in Gaza.
Yes.
Because what's going to happen is that it's going to return to the, if it goes well, we will return to the status quo ante before October 2023 with a blockade, but look at what Gaza has been turned into. So again, there is really a need for a deep change, a deep shift of paradigm. It requires a lot of critical thinking. But first of all, let's stop the genocide because it's still ongoing. And it risks to become it risks to expand even further as we speak. How to use or how to protect the ICJ and the ICC more? And again, I think it's about, for example, let me give you an example that comes from another country, Italy. It's paradoxical that Italy is the state where the Rome Statute was signed. And I could see where it was going, where the silence, the protracted silence after the arrest warrants issued against the Prime Minister of Israel and the former defense minister. And then I could hear in the background saying, oh, but it's not really binding. No, it's binding, it's binding. And then also there was another thing after, I think that now there is an investigation that has been open on Italy, both nationally and internationally, on Italy helping another ICC wanted man, not from Israel, from another country, Libya. And this man, this wanted person was arrested and then sent back to Libya on a state plane. I mean, it's like, what can we do in situations like this? What do we do to protect the system? We need to, again, hold people accountable. Doesn't matter who violates the law, they need to be held accountable. And it can be done, it can be done. Look, I want to share something that is very personal and I would like not to be misunderstood. I come from a region, from a part of Italy where we are not just, we're not very feminist, as you can see from my slip of tongue.
Sorry.
I still keep on thinking about that, I'm so sorry. No. And, but again, it's also, it's a beautiful land south of Italy which has been plagued by criminality. And the thing is that something that really shaped me as a person, as a young person, was that the two judges who had exposed and written that the mafia is not something that is committed, a series of crimes committed by thugs in the street dealing with, the mafia is a system, it's a white-collar system that happens and thrives when politicians and businesses and financial interests get together. And then it's, it permeates the entire life. And how does it win? These two judges who were killed, by the way, it's not a nice story, but these two judges, Giovanni Falcone and Borsellino, said, the only way that the system has to thrive is through your silence. And they were killed. But this is when the population rose. And again, at least in its most brutal form, the people in Sicily have been fighting for 15 years, but this has created a sense of awareness among police officers, journalists, scholars, ordinary citizens, and the protests have been immense. And our small revolution, which is not talked about internationally, can mean something, is that we need to recognize this institutional bullism. We need to recognize these mafia-like techniques and know that they win only if they manage to silence us all. So wherever there is injustice, there should be watchdogs and lawyers helping you to resolve the question. It was true before October 7, but after October 7, many Palestinians have really suffered, like the Palestinians that they have as friends and family members in the occupied Palestinian territory. Many of them have lost homes, family members, community members, and teachers, and really bonds. They've evaporated. And I don't know, but many Palestinians have told me that the lack of solidarity and understanding they have experienced in workplaces, including in the solidarity community. So they kept on experiencing, some of them, not all of them, but it goes to the agency you were talking about. Some of them have even experienced, and I've seen it myself, like exclusion, isolation. We have a talk about Palestine. Why would you invite a Palestinian? What the Palestinian has to bring to the discussion, right? We know it all, right? Isn't who we are, and we know it all. And I deeply resent it. And I've always said, can we make space? Make space. Again, if it's me presenting my work, like tonight, it's okay to go solo. But otherwise, I really like to have, for example, in Italy, there is a very, very active, very diverse Palestinian community, including scholarly community, young Palestinians, and they are hardly seen, you know. And they're Palestinian Italians, so they have this capacity to speak to both communities and of both communities. The other thing that is really telling is how we expect the Palestinians to conform with our way of processing what has happened to Palestine. Am I the only one who has been made uncomfortable by the rage, the kept inside rage that the Palestinians carried? Because we know, right, how you have to express yourself when you are on a podium. We know the words that you can use and what you cannot use. I mean, it's okay if Israeli leaders go around telling that they can erase Palestine and incinerate kids, but God forbids making parallels and seeking for empathy. You need to be conformant. You are in our society, so please behave. Can we please stop? Let's take a break and think of who we are. And the Palestinians, I mean, this is, I think, one of the elements why the Palestinians somewhat continue to be excluded. I speak to the Palestinians in the room. You guys have been struggling to be seen, and now you are seen. I mean, you're really one of the native population who have managed to make their case known, heard, fought for, litigated at the International Court of Justice and heard. I mean, there are people striving to have the Israeli architects of the monstrosity that has been done to the Palestinians checked at the International Criminal Court. So it's quite immense, and still you have to fight to be seen and to be heard. So I think that this is I don't have really much wisdom to share other than thank you. Thank you for how much you are teaching us, for how much you are still remaining peaceful and resilient and generous, because the most horrible thing that could happen after this genocide, wherever it ends, is to see that the genocide has taken away the most precious thing that you have, which is your capacity to be gentle and loving toward the rest of the world, no matter how much harm has been done to you. So thank you, shukran.
Now, Francesca, it's almost time for us to go our separate ways, or to go for the bar. But there's one thing that we...
Really? Cool. I like the
There's one thing that we would really love to do still. Every 2 years, the Rights Forum grants the Dries van Agt Award to an individual or an organization that has made a distinctive effort to promote justice in the situation Israel-Palestine, with humanity, equality, and international law as its guiding principles. This effort can be exceptional in its form, visibility, or impact. And in 2023, the Rights Forum had the honor to award the prize to the organization Plant een olijfboom. Plant an olive tree. Esther is there. For their important and outstanding work in mobilizing awareness of the situation of the Palestinian people in Dutch society, amongst other things, by offering people here in Holland the possibility to plant olive trees on Palestinian soil to protect the lands from theft by the Israeli occupying forces. And in the past years, and especially since the start of the genocide, we have seen Plant an Olive Tree develop to become one of the strongest voices in the Dutch public debate in fighting illegal occupation, apartheid, and defending Palestinian human rights. We have not regretted awarding Plant an Olive Tree this award for a single day, and I would like to give a big shout out to their director, Esther van der Most.
I do.
Now, it will not come as a surprise who we choose to grant the Dries van Agt Award this year. Since Francesca Albanese's appointment by the UN Human Rights Council in 2022 as the Special Rapporteur for the situation of the human rights in the Palestinian territories occupied since 1967, the first woman to hold this position, Francesca's reports and speeches have been of consistent quality and urgency. Albanese was one of the first voices within the UN system to state openly that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Israel is committing acts of genocide in Gaza. Despite intense and often ill-informed criticism of her work, even from within the diplomatic mainstream, and despite gross and often misogynistic attacks on her as a UN rapporteur and as a person, attacks particularly coming from Israel and the United States, but also Europe, she continued to fulfill her tasks with her head held high. Francesca combines deep context knowledge, critical observation, and a clear moral compass, and she always puts principles of international law at the heart. By not only pointing the finger to the occupying power and combating factions, but also putting the spotlight on the heavy responsibilities of third parties, she truly embodies the art of speaking truth to power. Francesca's work is a source of knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment for human rights workers, activists, and anyone sympathizing with the anti-genocide and Palestine solidarity movement. With her bold and unapologetic style, Francesca creates space all around the world, including here in the Netherlands, to say the things out loud that should have been said a long time ago, but thus far remained unsaid out of shame or fear of retaliation. Francesca. It is a huge honor to grant you, on behalf of the Rights Forum and almost certainly on behalf of every compatriot who carries the principles of justice and shared humanity close to their hearts, the 2025 Dries van Agt Award.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So embarrassed. Thank you.
Woo!
Shall I sit again?
If you
I'm
want
really
to.
embarrassed. I'm very good at dealing with the detractors, but this really makes me nervous. Thank you so much.
Do you want to say something?
Oh.
Well, you've said a lot, but you might want to have some words. Or you say, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Okay.
seriously, yeah, I know that it looks like almost sometimes I'm emotionless, you know, but I'm really serious. I deal better with like platforms of how do we call it? Barking dogs at an airplane, but dogs barking at an airplane. I really don't know how to handle all this appreciation and love. I would like to say that it's not about me. I'm just a regular human being, seriously. And this is why I'm saying, if I do that, you can do that. So please, please don't stop. I really want to. I really would like to meet the lady who has been giggling from this corner, because I'm really serious, and every time I try to say something, she's like, ha ha ha. So, thank you so much, really, thank you so much, and Rights Forum, and family of Dries van Agt, and all of you are here. This is just yet another beautiful evening in an awful time. And let's continue enlightening each other, because eventually, I know that it looks very dark, but you see the cracks on the wall, I see light filtering through the cracks, and that light is us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.